Hi everyone, David Aragona and Mike Beer here, taking a look at one of the stakes events on Florida Derby Saturday at Gulfstream Park. This one right in the middle of that 14 race card. Race 7 is the Grade 3 Ghostzapper for the older horses, going the two-turn distance of 1 mile and a 16th on the dirt course. And Mike, I feel like this might be a break for most players on Saturday at Gulfstream. Most might treat it as more of an exhibition race than a handicapping event, as you can see from the morning line. White Abarrio listed at 1-9. I like that. He probably is going to be 1-9, so the line maker should make him that price. And he just towers over this field based on any metric you want to use.
Yeah, you don't see the 1-9 morning line that often, but hard to argue when you're looking at the running lines of White Abarrio. I think it's pretty clear to just about everybody anyway that if he shows up and runs anything like his good race, he'll beat this field.
Yeah, he is, of course, coming off a victory in the Grade 1 Pegasus World Cup, where he defeated a much better field than this. And I would imagine this Ghostzapper is just being viewed as a bridge race for his connections, a stepping stone to whatever targets he's going to have later this summer, later this spring, I should say, in the summertime. So we'll see if he's able to pick up an easy victory on Saturday. Let's check out the Timeform US pace projector for this race. And White Abarrio is a horse that can be forward, Mike, but he certainly doesn't need to be fighting it out in the front end. We saw that last time in the Pegasus, where he's had a couple lengths off the pace and just pounced at the half-mile pole. So I would imagine the connections will be looking to pull out a similar trip here.
Yeah, he's just a tactical horse. He will be forward in this race, but they're not going to be, going all out to try to make the lead here. He's got a stablemate in the 6, One Sharp Cookie, who just looks like a horse that's going to go to the front in this race and probably provide a little bit of pace. That horse probably goes, and maybe that complicates things for, I guess, the horse who is White Abarrio's main rival, the 2 Tuscan Sky, who just feels like if he doesn't get himself involved on the pace, he's just not the same horse.
Yeah, I think that's a key point for Tuscan Sky, and we'll discuss that a little bit more when we get to him. But let's go through this field from the rail out, beginning with the number 1, the Thor, who is going to be a big price in this race, Mike. And he's just not competitive with a horse like White Abarrio based on speed figures, but he's only raced in this country 3 times. Did get a bit of a trip 2 back when he made an early move to take that race over, and just seemed to get a little lost in front, tired at the end. He's just going to need to take a big step forward if he's even going to hit the board in this race, though.
Yeah, just based on what he's done since he arrived here in North America, he can't beat this field. I hear what you're saying about the race 2 back. Still would have liked to have seen him win that race if I was going to take him seriously in a tougher race going forward.
The number 2, Tuscan Sky, is that horse that you mentioned with regard to the pace projector. He is one that does his best running when he is forwardly placed, if not fighting it out on the lead. And he generally runs quite poorly when he's not able to attain that position. And we saw that occur last time in the mine shaft, where he just got outrun, took a stutter step out of the gate, didn't really break with the leaders, and got pushed all the way back to last. I guess he was running on a little bit at the end, but he's never going to be effective from that position. And if he breaks well and is able to get forward in here, maybe there's a scenario where he runs one of his better races and White Abarrio regresses a little bit, and suddenly it gets to be a more competitive race than it looks on paper. But a lot of things have to go right for this horse, Mike.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's exactly how I looked at him. I mean, I guess if you were going to, just look for the one horse who has maybe some kind of chance to upset the favorite, it would be Tuscan Sky, because he actually has run some really nice races along the way. But he's just one of those horses where if things don't go exactly perfectly for him, he's not only isn't he as good, he's terrible in those races.
Yeah, he really is an all or nothing proposition. So you might want to keep that in mind if you're playing this as an exotic bet, exactas or trifectas underneath White Abarrio. The number 3 is Lightning Tones, just a horse who's really found a new lease on life since he was claimed for $16,000 back in the summer of last year at Gulfstream Park. Got a little bit of a freshening, come back for new connections, and just run 4 of the best races of his career. Last time out, finished 3rd behind Mindframe, who probably was not at his very best off the layoff that day, but Lightning Tones just put in his typical good effort. He's a real overachiever, Mike.
Yeah, yes, he's clearly upped his game since the claim, as you pointed out. They took him for 16, and he's gotten better for these new connections. He's just run probably the 4 best races of his life since the claim, and so I'm not surprised they're taking a shot here. It's unfortunate for them that White Abarrio shows up, because it probably means he can't win, but maybe he can get second.
White Abarrio, if he runs back to his last effort in the Grade 1 Pegasus World Cup, everybody else in here is running for second. That's pretty obvious. We'll take a look at the stretch run of that race where he got a very good trip this day, Mike. It always looked like he was going to win this race as you watched it unfold, just the way that he was traveling into the race on the backstretch. And as soon as Irad Ortiz pushed the button on the far turn, he reeled in Saudi Crown, put that horse away with ease, and there was just nobody running on from the back as he runs off to a big victory. We've seen him do this before in the Whitney a couple of years ago, the Breeders' Cup. He doesn't produce these performances with a whole lot of regularity, but it might not matter against a field like this.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's just a spot here where, regardless of what you think of him overall and whether you think he's truly a top horse, it doesn't really matter when they're going to run him in races like this, because it just feels like something's going to have to go terribly wrong for him not to beat this field. It's not that interesting a race outside of him, even if you're not his biggest fan. And I'll admit readily, David, I'm not his biggest fan, but I'm not betting against him here.
One of the horses chasing home White Abarrio in that Pegasus was the number 5 Power Squeeze, a filly who took on the boys that day, and she's going to try the males once again here. Sounded like the connections when they scratched her out of an allowance race earlier this month were looking to find an easier spot or maybe stick with the fillies. I think they talked about the Apple Blossom potentially or a race in New York, but they wind up here instead taking on White Abarrio once again in this Ghostzapper, and it's a little perplexing why they keep running this filly against one of the better male horses in the older handicap division. She never really had a chance in the Pegasus with the way that race unfolded and the fact that she drew the far outside post position, but she's going to have to run a lot better if she's going to turn the tables on the winner of that race.
Yeah, exactly. The post position probably isn't going to matter here either way. Yeah, I'm with you. I'm surprised that she turns up in my past performances when I pulled this race up. I mean, they were talking about, it seemed like some more logical spots when they scratched her last month or earlier this month. And I was just surprised to see her in here. We'll see if they actually run, because it just kind of feels like they got to have something else in mind for this filly than to run her against White Abarrio back in this spot.
Drawn on the outside are a couple of horses going out for the Safi Joseph barn that are going to accompany White Abarrio to the starting gate here at very big prices. The number 6 is One Sharp Cookie. And Mike, I'm not convinced that this horse really wants to go this far. I know he was second to Lightning Tones in the Sunshine Classic 2 back, but really had no excuse to get run down that day. And now he's just facing a much tougher field.
Yeah, exactly. He's hard to make a case for. Maybe he's just in here to make sure this pace goes in front of his stablemate and make sure nobody sort of gets loose on White Abarrio and wires the field. Hard to see him taking this field all the way.
Yeah, it does feel like Safi Joseph does a lot of favors to the Gulfstream Park racing office by beefing up these field sizes, and he's certainly done that here by entering a horse like the number 7, Super Corinto, who has just not been anywhere near the same horse that he was when he first came to the United States in late 2022, Mike. Since that Dubai World Cup, his form has completely fallen apart, and I don't know how you make a case for him in this spot.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised to see him scratch out of this thing. I'm not even sure why he's entered here. You're right. They sent him over to Dubai. He was horrific over there, and he just hasn't been able to refine his form.
Well, let's throw up our picks for this race, Mike, and I think we've landed in the same direction. Neither of us are trying to beat White Abarrio, who should be every bit of that 1-9 morning line in this race. Probably just a race to skip from a wagering standpoint.
Yeah, just one of you want to watch, I guess, anyway, because you do have one of the top handicap horses in the country running here, so you want to watch the race and see how he does. But I'm not betting against him.
4-2-3-5 for Mike and 4-5-2-3 for me. And race 7 at Gulfstream Park on Saturday. It's the Grade 3 Ghostzapper. Good luck if you're playing the races this weekend.